I've always had a fascination with history, about how the events of the past shape the present, and how the decisions of a few affect the many. And none more so than the story of Hannibal the Carthaginian, as he marched across Spain through France and over the Alps into Italy, with his army of 26,000 men and 37 elephants. It was a story I first heard in Mr. Stakelam's 4th class history lesson, one that I had long since forgotten, until one afternoon, while walking through the stalls of London's Camden Lock Market, there it was. An 1808 print of Monsieur d'Anville's map of Hannibal's expedition. An idea began to form, and it was one that just simply wouldn't go away. The more I thought about it, the more I became obsessed with the question, what if? What if I was to follow in Hannibal's footsteps? To follow this 200-year-old map retracing a journey which took place over 22 centuries ago. That's 2,228 years to be exact. So as Van Goethe said, whatever you can do, or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So with my basic camera kit, a non-existent budget, and no experience in filmmaking, I headed for Spain. Hannibal took command of the Carthaginian army at the age of 25. Their Iberian capital was New Carthage, or Cartagena as it's called now. Already a highly experienced soldier, he spent the next 2 years securing his Spanish domains. I've come to the Valencian town of Buñol to bear witness to a more modern version of warfare, La Tamotina, or tomato fight, the largest food fight in the world. A tradition with unknown origins, it is believed to date back to the time of the Spanish Civil War. What ensues is a deluge of a crimson bombardment, which renders the streets of Buñol knee-deep in overripe tomato pulp. As up to 100,000 participants from all over the world converge on this little town on the last Wednesday of every August. As you can see, it's not a pretty sight. "50 or so kilometres north of Buñol is the town of Sagunto. This is where Hannibal attacked the citadel and openly declaring war on an ally of Rome. After a siege which lasted over 8 months, Hannibal's men finally breached the walls. Hannibal himself suffered a spear wound to the thigh. Outraged, the Romans demanded the capture and surrender of Hannibal to answer for his war crimes. The Carthaginian Senate refused the Roman delegation's demands, and soon a state of war would exist between the two empires. With the destruction of Sagunto, Hannibal turned his attention north. He knew he would have to act fast. Rome would not have taken the defeat of her ally lightly. He correctly assumed that a Roman invasion of Spain was imminent. But defending Spain against wave after wave of Roman legions is not what Hannibal had in mind. As a youth, he had sworn an oath of enmity towards Rome. So in the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal gathered his army of 100,000 men, 10,000 cavalry, and his 37 elephants, and headed north, never to see New Carthage again. Finally made it to Imposta, where Hannibal crossed the Ebro with his elephants, the first main river crossing that he had. Feet are all blistered from just endless walking, like bubbles. Just tired. Been a long slug. It feels like I left months ago. Anyway, tomorrow, cross the bridge myself and head north towards the Pyrenees. That's it. got macadamias for dinner tonight. Didn't get any fuel for the stove, so no pasta, no nothing. I had a pear. I think I dropped that in the road somewhere. It's gone. It's all good. Have a fire. Don't really need it because it's toasty anyway. It's just, you know, good camping vibe, good atmosphere. So why not have one? Moon's pretty full, so it's going to be another bright night. Shouldn't be too difficult to sleep. There's a motorway in the distance, so I don't know, I think I like to hear the cars and the trucks and stuff. Stops you getting freaked out. And that's dinner. Red moon rising on the horizon. Ain't you ever seen that red moonlight before? That night, while Hannibal and his army camped by the Ebro, Hannibal had a dream. A guide sent to Hannibal from the gods instructed Hannibal to follow and not to look back. But looking over his shoulder, Hannibal saw a giant serpent laying waste to the land, destroying everything in its path. A huge grotesque beast upon the land. Upon asking his guide what this meant, Hannibal was told it represented the destruction of Rome, its people and civilization by Hannibal's own hand. I don't think I had such dreams as I slept peacefully by the Ebro that night myself. The act of crossing the Ebro was an open act of war and defied a treaty that had been in place for over 30 years. North of the Ebro was Roman territory, while south was recognised as coming under the Carthaginian sphere of influence. The modern-day city of Barcelona was founded by Hannibal's father, Hamilcar, and actually takes its name from the family surname Barca, meaning lightning in Phoenician. On top of Mount Tibidabo stands the Church of the Sacred Heart. I've come to see the 100-year-old mosaics inside the crypt, which depict perilous journeys throughout the ages, where early 20th century explorers would come to pray for safe passage on their expedition. I still had 800 kilometres to go and 2 mountain ranges to cross, so I figured I was in the right place. With my curiosity satisfied and my dues paid, I decided to head into the city founded by Hannibal's own family. In Barcino, as it was then known, Hannibal would have been able to rest his army and restock his supplies. From its humble foundations in Hannibal's time as a fishing village and port town, Barcelona has grown to become the largest metropolis anywhere on the Mediterranean. At the centre of which is its crowning glory, Gaudi's Familia Sagrada, a cathedral that has taken over a century to build, and it still isn't complete. At 170 metres, Gaudi's divine monument rivals that of any of the modern or ancient world, and is the most visited tourist attraction in all of Spain. But this didn't prevent some discontentment among the ranks. Hannibal had to release a couple of thousand Celtiberian warriors who feared to leave their homeland in order to avoid an insurrection. This ancient city retains a youthful vibrance and embraces old and new alike. It was time for me to continue my journey. Hannibal had to split his army into two columns for the traverse of the Pyrenees. One column would go via the coast through Emporia, a Greek settlement, and the other through the pass at Le Perthus. When Hannibal left Spain, he had no way of knowing that he would never return. This was the homeland of his supposed wife, Imilce, and some say of his son. It was the country who made him the man he was, a place that was his home since the age of 9. It was the same for most of the men in Hannibal's army. They would never see home again either. On my last few days in Spain, I began to reflect on my own journey and the past couple of weeks, and the unknown of what lay ahead. I had yet to climb the Pyrenees. I wasn't going to take either of the passes, but a route between the two, which would take me over the peak of Nulos. Just what I needed in preparation for the Alps. Way, hoping that Castle, the Requesens, would be open. For nothing else, but then it's just a good, stop-off point. Been walking all day, and I think I'll wait till tomorrow till I try and climb Puig Nulos. Because I'm just shattered now. It's taken me 2 days to walk from Requesens, and yeah, this would have been a good stop point, but I might go find somewhere to camp, have some dinner, and sleep this one off. So finally, after a month of walking, here I am, only a few footfalls from the French border. Hannibal had already lost many men by this point in his journey. But what remained to face the long trek across Gaul was the core of his Numidian cavalry, his finest infantry, and of course all of his elephants. In southern France, Hannibal found the vast resources to sustain his army. The elephants alone would consume over 7 tons of food daily, as well as 8,000 litres of water. And that's before he fed his 10,000 horses and over 60,000 men. Hannibal himself was very modest by all accounts, eating only that which his soldiers ate, and sleeping on the ground amongst them. I too was passing through Gaul in the late summer, with the autumn and winter just around the corner, at the time of harvest. I'm heading for the town of Nîmes for the festival of Vendage, the harvest festival. As I arrived, the festivities were well underway, and there's a surprising tradition of bullfighting in this region which I never knew existed in France. A 1st century Roman amphitheatre stands at the centre of town, and it is here that the corrida or bullfight has been resurrected. Today's bullfight, I'm told, promises to be a good one, and armed with a sense of curiosity more than anything else, I decide to tag along. Having never been to a corrida, I had no idea what to expect. A centuries-old tradition of bloodletting, which still takes place in what we consider a more enlightened, civilised era. I felt unable, or at least inexperienced enough, to pass a moral judgment on the matter, not at least without witnessing it once in my lifetime. What ensues appears to be some well-planned tragic dramatisation. A play in 3 very distinct acts. First, 2 picadors on horseback enter the arena and goad the bull to attack. Up until as recently as 50 years ago, the horses were unprotected from the bull's horns, and were considered collateral damage to each and every bullfight. The American novelist Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "Once you accept the death of the bull as inevitable." The Pont du Gard is a Roman bridge over the River Gardon and supports an aqueduct as its upper tier. It is part of the same system which was used to transport fresh water to the colony at Nîmes. The water channel itself is 160 feet above the river, and it has a fall of less than 1 inch along its entire length of 900 feet. In fact, the aqueduct drops a mere 50 feet along its entirety of almost 50 kilometres. That's a gradient of 1 to 3,000. Though it is estimated the bridge itself took about 15 years to complete, the entire aqueduct took over 50. So the Romans were really thinking long term here. Napoleon was so impressed with the structure that he had a summer house built within sight of the aqueduct, so he could wake up and view it every morning. I've decided it's a good place to pull over and take a closer look, and perhaps even camp myself for the night. I'm heading along one of the many GR trails which crisscross the French countryside. These networks of trails are marked by painted strips on the rocks and trees along your chosen route, and tell you which direction to take and which ones not to. These trails are like a labyrinth of goat tracks, and it's easy enough to get lost. I eventually found my way along the ledge, which I hoped would afford me a majestic view worthy of Napoleon. With its uppermost conduit still virtually intact, and its interior walls would originally have been greased with fig to ease the passage of water and reduce corrosion. It is one of the most visited monuments in France. Napoleon even had an adjacent bridge built alongside in the original style. So I'll camp here tonight, take the opportunity to clean my camera equipment, and take a well-deserved rest before I begin the approach to the Alps. There's a strange comfort sleeping here tonight with the glow of the light coming from the porticos. I think I'm going to sleep well.
Well, doesn't look like I'll be going anywhere today. Everything's getting wet. It's raining inside my tent. And it's really raining outside.
This change in the weather reminded me that the Mistral was coming, and with it the cold winds from the north. And I needed to get as far east as I could, as quickly as I could. It was the same for Hannibal. He needed to get to the Alps before the snow would close the mountain passes until spring. Continuing along the Randonnée trails, I was able to find my way east through the forest, which leads all the way 30 kilometres to the Rhone. These beautiful forests of the Garrigue remain untouched for millennia and would have been the same in Hannibal's day as they are today. It isn't known exactly where Hannibal crossed the Rhone. Historians speculate over the exact point, placing it anywhere from Arles, 40 kilometres south, to Roquemar, 20 kilometres north. But no crossing point along the Rhone is as grand as at Avignon. It is believed Hannibal constructed rafts and covered them in soil to convince the elephants to embark. Then, cutting the moorings, they were dragged to the other side. Nowadays, the city of Popes is surrounded by its 14th century ramparts, complete with watchtowers. This picturesque city on the left bank of the Rhone was the home of the papacy for almost 100 years. Nowadays, it draws visitors from all over the world and is home to an annual theatre festival. I take Barcello's acrobatic bronze elephant as a sign that I'm on the right path. But Hannibal had a fight on his hands with the tribes on the left bank, and not only that, he encountered a detachment of Roman cavalry, a scouting party 400 strong, that had been dispatched by Scipio when his legion landed at Marseille just a few days earlier. But Hannibal didn't want to fight the Romans in a meaningless battle in Gaul. He wanted to face and defeat them on their own territory in Italy, to drive the nail once and for all into the coffin of Roman ambition. Hannibal marched his army north along the Rhone, deeper into Gaul, away from the coast and Scipio's consular army. After 4 days marching, he came to a place known only in the history as the Island. It's another mystery of the story of Hannibal, its exact location now lost, but it is described as a triangular slice of land, wedged by rivers on 2 sides and mountains on the 3rd. Just north of the modern city of Valence, there is such a place, where the Isère River enters the Rhone and forms an island. So tonight I'll camp here, as Hannibal did, and tomorrow follow the Isère east towards its source, somewhere in the Alps. Once into the Alps, Hannibal encountered many hostile tribes. and he found he had to fight his way, mile by mile and pass by pass, against the hordes, who would throw rocks down upon his men from their hiding places in the heights above. His men were freezing, his animals starving, and his elephants dying, but Hannibal urged them on higher and higher to the roof of Europe. There is a story of Hannibal becoming trapped in a gorge, which I believe is Gorge the Kira. He was ambushed by yet another tribe, who couldn't resist the temptation of attacking his rich baggage train. The tribesmen attacked only in daytime, retreating to their homes at night. So under the cover of darkness, Hannibal dispatched some of his own fighters to hide above the passes, and attacked the Gauls when they arrived the following morning. Today the gorge in the pass to Italy is protected by the Chateau de Kira. And surprised to find a little cafe this high in the Alps, I thought it would be my last opportunity to indulge in coffee and croissants before tackling the next call. Moving higher and higher, Hannibal lost many more men and animals, some from the cold, but others falling to their deaths into the narrow passes below. For them it was an unusually cold autumn, with fresh layers of snow falling on the previous year's snowfall, creating treacherous conditions. But when I passed, it was a blissful Indian summer. But I was still another 2 or 3 days' march from the Italian border. And like Hannibal's men, I too was to succumb to the mountains. As I climbed higher, I began to feel more and more nauseous, at first thinking it was altitude sickness of some sort. But in fact, it was the consumption of unfiltered water that was doing the damage. I began to feel disorientated, dizzy, no longer able to film, and resorting to just taking photos as I climbed. And even here, on the Col des Eyes, 2,500 metres above sea level, I found the GR trail, guiding me forward towards Italy. But I was ill, almost questioning my ability to continue. I looked down to the far side in dismay as I saw, well, nothing. More mountains. But with a bit of luck, I was able to locate a gîte, a mountain hut for hikers and climbers. A refuge from the elements. As I crawled into my sleeping bag that night, I thought about what could have happened had I been stuck out on the mountain. Two nights' rest in the gîte gave me back my strength and appetite. My enthusiasm too was renewed. I really had almost given up. I just wanted to be rescued, to be home, with a warm bed and hot food and clean clothes. I really felt I was beginning to understand how it was for Hannibal and his men. This is the experience I had wanted, that only the journey could teach me. I felt that I was changing, that I wouldn't be the man I used to be, that somehow a different Kevin would descend out of the Alps. The next day, I felt strong enough to resume the journey, and I planned my route safely down to the town of Briançon. As I gazed across the col that I had taken 2 days earlier, I wondered how I'd even made it this far at all. Hannibal laid waste to a settlement in the Alps as retribution and a deterrent to tribes who had been attacking his army. Some historians claim this settlement was Gap, and others think Briançon. Today this sleepy alpine town is the gateway to the ski slopes in the surrounding environs. And for me it would be my final stop in France. I'd crossed Spain and the Pyrenees, Languedoc, the Rhône and the Lower Alps, and ahead of me lay Italy. I unceremoniously crossed the border at Claviere. The Schengen Agreement has removed the guards, and borders are a thing of the past. And Claviere, normally busy in ski season, was quite dead in September. Houses were vacant, but guarded by overzealous security dogs. It felt quite surreal. There was no view to the Italian plains as described by Polybius or Livy. Legend has it that Hannibal, upon reaching the summit with Italy in sight, gathered his men on a plateau and pointed south towards Rome and proclaimed to his men, "There lies the prize." I went in search for this plateau, but it may have just been another Hannibal myth. So there it is, the Po Valley and Italy. But it took me 6 weeks to do getting here. It took Hannibal 5 months with thousands of men, thousands of horse and 37 elephant. Just can't believe I'm here, looking down on Italy. But this was just the beginning for Hannibal, the start of his war on Italian soil. But first he had to feed and rest his men, provide fodder for his animals, to fully recuperate. It wouldn't be long before they would have to fight. After only a few short weeks he would have to face a consular army at Trebia, and finally put his elephants into battle. But for now he could rest. He was in friendly territory. His allies in northern Italy had provided him with a warm welcome. But of the estimated 100,000 men he left Cartagena with, fewer than 26,000 men remained. But as I said, the story doesn't end here. Hannibal spent the subsequent 16 years waging war against the Romans. But I don't have the luxury of 16 years to spend in Italy. So I'm taking a train on my final leg of the journey, south, to Rome, the capital of the empire. The prize which Hannibal had promised his men, and the prize that would ultimately lie outside Hannibal's grasp, despite numerous victories. As Hannibal put it to Hannibal after the Battle of Cannae, "You know how to win a victory, but you do not know how to use one." It was the Roman people's ability to endure the unendurable that finally persevered. Even inside the central railway station of Rome is part of the wall that the Romans built to keep Hannibal out. A wall on which the Romans stood and auctioned off the land where Hannibal's army stood when he finally marched on the city. And I can only imagine what could have been had Hannibal been victorious. No Roman Empire or alphabet or linguistic influence. History would have been completely different, with Rome being but a footnote in a greater Carthaginian history. What the world would have been like then. Of course, history, as we know it, turned out differently. The Romans withstood the greatest test, and after which built the greatest empire the world had ever seen. From this small Etruscan town, with its own legends of Romulus and Remus, suckling from the wolf, would grow an empire which would stand for several hundred years, until it was split in two by Constantine. Then Rome itself would fall to the Vandals. But instead of destroying the city, they integrated and became part of its society. The only lasting invasion seems to be that of the tourists, that flock to Rome in their millions, to throw coins in the Trevi fountain, or place their hand in the mouth of truth. Or simply just to watch a Michael Jackson impersonator by the Spanish Steps. This is the Rome of today. The empire is long gone. It's nice to see that at least one elephant made it into the city. 30 years later, Hannibal committed suicide in Asia Minor, so as not to be captured and brought back to Rome in chains. Taking poison, he is said to have written, "I shall relieve the Romans of their anxiety, as it is too much for them to wait for an old man's natural death." And though, even after he was long gone, the Romans would use the phrase Hannibal ad portas, or Hannibal is at the gates, during times of duress. So that's it then, the HANNIBILLICA. All the walking done. What have I learned? Well, if you have an idea, or really feel there's something you have to do, then do it. Don't wait. Don't let the moment pass. 2 years of dreaming and planning could have easily become 4 or 8, and then faded into something I was going to do, once. Nah, I couldn't live with myself. Carpe diem. Seize the day. To quote Juvenal, "Will you find that great general? This is he, whom Africa, washed by the Moorish Sea, and adjoined the warm Nile. Then go, madmen, and run over the rugged Alps, and supply a theme to please those on speech day recitations."